Hey guys! Today I'm going to be doing a favorites type of video, and I'm going to talk about some of my favorite movies today. I previously did a video kind of similar to this, talking about my favorite TV shows and all a while back, and a lot of you asked to know my favorite movies. So I'm going to break this up into two parts, which normally I wouldn't want to do, but I just can't get through all of them in one video without it being ridiculously long. So this first one I will post, and then a little bit later on I'll probably upload the second half. So if you're interested in that, or if you like this one, then stay tuned for part 2 to come soon. Okay, so I'm gonna jump right in. I have a wide variety of types of movies and movies from all different times and things like that. So I'm gonna start with first my kind of all-time favorite movies, and the ones that if you were to ask me in person, like, what's your favorite movie? These would be some of the first ones that I would name. So going with the top of the list, the first thing I have are the Batman Trilogy movies, which have been kind of released in the past couple years. So that includes Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises. These are all directed by Christopher Nolan, and I love these movies because I'm a huge comic book movie person. I love all the DC and Marvel comic movies and Iron Man and stuff, but I love these particularly because they have phenomenal acting to begin with. I love Christian Bale as Batman, and there's Michael Caine and Morgan Freeman, and I also just like the way that they are. They're a very dark kind of depiction of Batman, whereas in a lot of the older type of Batman movies with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson and stuff, they still had a little bit more of a lighthearted kind of tone to them, whereas this one is very dark and very serious, and I feel like it's very realistic in how it's portrayed, and I think that the director did a fantastic job, and I love just how they all come together. So if you haven't seen them, I highly recommend it. I'm sure most of you have seen The Dark Knight, which is the second one. I think that one's gotten the most kind of publicity, hype and stuff, especially because Heath Ledger and him passing away and all of that, but he also did a fantastic performance in that one. So that's my first favorite. I love those. They will never get old. I think that they're very enjoyable from a plot standpoint, but they're also very well constructed. Next movie I have is The Perks of Being a Wallflower, which was based in obviously a kind of book to movie creation from Stephen Chbosky's book, which I also love. It's one of my all-time favorite books, so I was very excited to watch this movie because this is one of the few, and I've said this before, this is one of the few movies that for me lives up to the quality and the standard of the book. There are very few movies from books that I feel like are done well, are done like I imagine the book, but I thought that this one was perfect. I love the actors. I think Emma Watson and Logan Lerman and the boy that played Patrick was hilarious, but I think that they all did a fantastic job. But I think the reason why it's so good is because Stephen Chbosky actually directed it, and since he wrote the book, I think he has a little bit of an upper hand there. So I thought that that was really good. I highly recommend that if you've read the book and haven't watched the movie, or vice versa. Or if you haven't watched or read either, then read the book first and then watch it, because it's so good. And I think that it's a great storyline, first off, from the book, and I think that it was, again, done very well. Another one that is similar to Perks of Being a Wallflower is Silver Linings Playbook. It's a contemporary as well, and it's also based on the book by Matthew Quick, but I have not read the book yet, but the movie was great. It's got a very interesting and kind of different plot. At first, when you're watching, you're kind of like, what is going on? It's very kind of unique in the plot and kind of the character, but the actors bring it to life very well. So it has Bradley Cooper as Pat, and then Jennifer Lawrence plays the character Tiffany, and then the dad, who is Bradley Cooper's dad in the movie, is Robert De Niro. So they're very quirky. They all have a little bit of some unique characteristics as characters, but the plot is very good. It's a cute story, and it ends very well, so I love that one. Definitely a favorite, and I would suggest everybody to watch it. So I'm going to go a little bit to the past and kind of do a throwback to 1980s, and that is because I am a huge John Hughes fan. And if you don't know who John Hughes is, he's a major kind of, semi, I guess, pretty popular director from the 1980s kind of decade, and he did The Breakfast Club, he did Pretty in Pink, the 16 Candles, he did Bueller's Day Off, and all of these really good kind of contemporary films of the 1980s, and I love them. I am a huge 1980s era, I guess it's a decade, person. If I could go back to like any other decade to grow up and be like a teenager in, it would be the 80s. I love the 80s and I love these movies. They have great music and they're just good. And I like how he has the Brat Pack and the same characters in these movies. So if you've seen any of them, you know Molly Ringwald's in a lot of them. Emilio Estevez, and there's the kid that plays the nerd on The Breakfast Club. He's also in 16 Candles, and I just love them. They're very good, and they're still pretty relatable to our time. I feel like they're not as much relatable as the generations keep going on and on with the technology, but I feel like there's still some common ground, and I feel like that's why they're such classics and why people like them, but they're just good to watch. So my favorites are The Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink, and 16 Candles. I've only seen about half of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, so highly recommend checking out any of them. Especially The Breakfast Club, because that one is, I feel like, the most universal out of the three I said, for like both guys and girls, but they're all really good. So I highly 2 thumbs up to John Hughes. Another one that's from, I think, 92, could be from 88. I think it's from 1992. That was Pretty Woman. And this one has Julia Roberts and Richard Gere in it. This is like when she was younger. She's probably like 20s, I would say, when she made this movie. And it's very good. This one, again, is a classic that I think if you haven't seen, you should. And it's kind of an interesting story. It sounds like it wouldn't be like a good movie, but basically Julia Roberts plays a prostitute in Los Angeles or Hollywood, and she meets Richard Gere, who is like this very wealthy, like rich millionaire businessman. She meets him in downtown Hollywood in like the sketchy area, and she ends up like going with him, and then they kind of make an agreement for her to stay with him for the entire week as a prostitute, but she ends up staying with him at the Beverly Wilshire on Rodeo Drive, which is like this very fancy hotel, and then it kind of takes an interesting spin. So it's a very good movie. It has an amazing soundtrack and it's good. I love Richard Gere too. He's kind of old now, like older, but I think he's a good actor and I think that it's a great movie. So I highly recommend that. I think most people would enjoy it. It's really good. Another one from the 90s that's not really similar, but kind of, because it's in like Beverly Hills and all, is Clueless. And this movie is like, I almost feel like kind of ridiculous about how much I love this movie, because it's very goofy and like a very, I don't want to say cheesy, but it's a very silly kind of chick flick movie. And basically it's about this girl named Cher, who is I think she's like 16-year-old high school student who is very rich, spoiled. She lives in like this huge mansion in Beverly Hills with her dad, and she is just going through high school and, you know, trying to find like a boyfriend. She's not interested in like any of the high school boys, and she's like the most popular girl in school, so she's got to deal with like all of that, and then she meets a new friend, and then her stepbrother, and all this stuff. It's just very like, I guess like high school in a nutshell, but it's different because it's like on the scale of like these wealthy kind of privileged kids. And I feel like the 90s aspect makes it very funny because they wear like very 90s outfits, and they use like totally and all like the 90s phrasing, and it's just good. There's something about the movie that is like very appealing, and I find a lot of comfort in watching it. That sounds really bad, but it's funny. It's a cute movie. So, and it has a little bit of like a moral kind of into it. It's a good love story, sort of. So if you haven't seen that, it's worth watching. I love it. Next one I have is the Katy Perry movie, which some people would probably be hesitant to watch and probably wouldn't want to watch it because most people may not, you know, care about Katy Perry or like her life. But if you like Katy Perry at all, the movie that she came out with last year was amazing. And I was not really like, I was a Katy Perry fan and I loved her first CD, Teenage Dream, but I was never like a huge like, oh my gosh, I love Katy Perry type of person. And then I watched the movie and I completely fell in love with her. She comes off as just very genuine and authentic, and it tells about like her life, and it shows her like on tour and stuff, so all of her friends and family talk about her and she performs, so it's kind of like a concert in one, and it's really good. And I know a lot of people that watched it that really weren't crazy about her that ended up loving her by the end of the movie. So if you like her at all or her music, I think it's worth watching, and I love her now. She's one of my favorite people in at least like celebrities, and I would highly recommend it. So I love that movie. The other one I really like is The Devil Wears Prada. That one's always good. Very fashiony, very cool. I like The Blind Side, which is phenomenal. It was a very heart-wrenching kind of feel-good movie about football, and Sandra Bullock I love in that movie. and Tim McGraw. So if you haven't seen that one, it's great, especially if you live in the South and you're like a huge football fan, which I'm really not. But it's nice because it's like got a Southern aspect to it. But even if you don't live in the South, I think it's really good. And then the last one I have for this video is It's Complicated, which has a little bit of, I feel like, kind of like central kind of reaching. That doesn't make any sense. It's almost like it's centered for more like older people, like adults, like our parents, because it's more older cast, like the actors. It's Meryl Streep and Steve Martin and Alec Baldwin and stuff, but it's really good. It's funny and I love it. And I love Meryl Streep. She's funny. She has like a nice kind of feel about her as an actress. And this one is good. So if you haven't seen that one, it's funny. It's almost like grown-ups being kind of like teenagers almost, like they're very like fun. I don't know, I like it. So that's the last one I have. Most of these were kind of like more girly, kind of chick flicky movies, or contemporaries. So I guess that's kind of like the basis of this first one. But those are some of my favorites. I do have a whole bunch more down here that I didn't even get to, which will be coming up in part 2. So I hope you guys liked this, and feel free to leave me comments below with your favorite movies and movies that you think I should watch, because I'm always looking for something to watch, and especially movies. So let me know below, please. And I hope you guys are doing very well. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you all next time. Bye.